The hunt is on. A little busy here. I'm going all out. Time to retrain this pup. Hey, get your act together.
Noctis, 俺を止められるか。
I've wanted to mod in the English voice of Noctis into Tekken since he was released. Not that anything was wrong with his Japanese voice, but I just personally prefer his English voice. But when he released, his files were actually encrypted. It took until rather recently for the encryption to be figured out by the modding community, and especially Astronomy. So I immediately got to work in my free time making this mod. I'd like to do a quick showcase and then explain some of the process. The download link is in the description.
Lights on now. Hell yeah!
You win.
Piece of cake! Alright,
You win.
I'm gonna reel in a monster. Hey,
You
what's the
win.
word? King's Night? Oh yeah, I'm game. Ready when you are.
You
Hey, Ignis,
win.
make it a barbecue tonight. Sure? Nice. Gladio,
You win.
fishing looks good here. What the hell are you talking about? It's like a dive condo fish.
You win.
There's only so far a man can walk.
The first step was to extract the voice lines from Final Fantasy XV using the Hammerhead tool by Robin. I had to understand that there would be a few compromises. Not every line was going to match what he was actually saying or match the subtitles. I essentially localized Noctis using his lines from Final Fantasy XV. The context of the lines and inflections had to match that of the Japanese lines to pull this off. On top of this, Noctis originally says phrases when doing certain actions. There weren't many suitable takes where Noctis was like presently exerting an equal amount in tandem with his action, so some lines I had to simply leave as grunts. Not as accurate, but the results blend in better. I didn't originally plan to match the lip sync, but when I saw how many lines were pretty close to matching, I decided to do my best to sync them and to at least prevent him from speaking when his mouth was closed. The last thing to look for with the lines was to find the ones that are spoken more in Final Fantasy XV itself, so that audio-wise, you'd feel like you were playing Final Fantasy XV. To my understanding, most of his grunts and everything came from Dissidia, but because I wanted to get that feel from Final Fantasy XV, I opted to just stick with Final Fantasy XV voice lines.
What was I thinking? All over! Try this! Piece of cake!
I meticulously combed through all of the voice files of Final Fantasy XV and separated all of Noctis' lines. Then I extracted and decrypted his Tekken lines. Thankfully, Tekken doesn't have a frustrating audio system to mod. There was no hex editing, worrying about file size, or even length of lines to worry about. The format simply had to match. 16-bit WAV file stereo at 48K sample rate. So I organized everything loosely in foobar and picked out his lines that match or lines I could splice in to match. From here it was straightforward until I had to do his intros and outros. Tekken bakes the sound effects into them, so I had to recreate the sound effects. From there, I then had to make sure the volume of everything was correct, with matching his original volume and blending in with the rest of the roster. I made this mod personally for myself, so I was really doing the best I could to make sure he'd blend in, feel seamless and intentional, since I'm gonna hear this mod every single time I play as him. When all was said and done, I packed the bank file back up, encrypted it, and put it in a pack file. I try to dabble into modding as a hobby in my spare time, so if you're expecting any videos like that, they're gonna be pretty sparse. Otherwise, if you want to support me, you can find me on Patreon, and if you want to keep up to date on projects, then follow me on Twitter. Till next time, thank you for watching.